Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, this is going to be the Zero to Hero episode on the Hammer Throw Ignite Paladin. Yes, you heard that right, Zero to Hero episode. Why are you doing one so early in the season? Well, I have a few things to talk about. The other day, I was playing trade, like in, Merchant's Guild, and I was pretty much rich. I sold my 3LP world splitter that I dropped, and I ended up getting filthy rich after, farming world splitters all day and ended up with a few 2LP pairs. And after that, I kind of started investing into an erasing strike character to go do Uber Abberoth, and I also invested into the Flame Whip Warlock to also do Uber Abberoth. And I was getting ready to do it and spend all day fighting him, to learn the fight. And I was looking at my gear and I'm just like, what's the point? Like, I just had a little bit of an epiphany because, like, who am I making this content for? Right? Like, most people haven't even touched Uber Abberoth in general, right? Why should I care about this? And I kind of realized I didn't really have a reason to care about it. Uber Abberoth right now is kind of meant to be the end all be all, like where like a very small percentage of builds play. And that's not what I enjoy Last Epoch for, like at all. Like, I don't enjoy Last Epoch for the infinite amount of build investment opportunities or whatever. Like, I think Path of Exile is better at that. Like, if I wanted to spend 2 months on a singular build, like, I'd go play Path of Exile, bro. Like, the reason why I enjoy Last Epoch is just because it makes the fresh experience about like the first day, maybe first week of a character so much more fun than like PoE, right? Because it feels like I'm making a lot more choices and such. So why would I take that away by just farming Uber Abberoth all day? Like, I wouldn't like looked at everyone who's like farming Uber Abberoth on YouTube and on Twitch. No one's enjoying themselves. Like, obviously there's a few people that are, but most people are just doing it just to do it because they feel like as though people expect them to do it. And I don't know. It just didn't feel like good to me because, yeah, I could have just rolled a character in Merchant's Guild. Yeah, I was infinitely wealthy in Merchant's Guild. I could have just bought gear to kill Uber Abberoth, but what's the fun in that? There's no fun in that. No one wants to watch that. I don't want to watch that. I'll tell you that much. Like, I don't want to play that. And I definitely know that a lot of people who watch me don't want to watch me just spend an infinite amount of currency, go shit on Uber Abberoth real quick, and then move on. No one wants to watch me do that. You know what they want to watch me do? They don't watch me suffer. Why do you think people watch Quinn? It's because they watch people to suffer. So we're going to be doing Zero to Hero episodes from now on. The reason why being is I just like playing the game this way. I kind of realized it a little bit. Like, I like the experience all the way from level 1 to like 1,000-ish corruption. I like that experience. That's what Last Epoch does best currently. And after that, it kind of like, falls off a cliff a little bit, but that's fine. And like, after doing it so many times, I was just like thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, I can't wait till I'm doing more of these. I can't wait till I'm back doing these. Like, trade is cool and all because it allows me to try stuff I normally don't get to try. But there was no sense of accomplishment. There was no fun. There was nothing like that, right? Like, I don't have this sense of accomplishment spending 20 hours farming the same boss to finally kill him. Like, I don't really find satisfaction in that. I find satisfaction playing with a skill that normally is absolute dog poo and finding a way to actually make it do competent damage in the end game, right? Like Black Hole, a good example, right? That's what I find fun with. And Uber Ambroth isn't really designed for that at all. So yeah, we're gonna be doing these from now on, I think, for the time being at least. Like, I don't know. But the reason why I like solo character found a lot, like the cycle of it, is the idea is you start from level 1 with nothing on the character, right? And you're completely devoid of everything else that all your other characters have, including corruption farming and all that, meaning that every single thing that I do has to be farmed out. Every single item I have has to be farmed out, and this just leads to a much more fun gaming loop. Last Epoch is a lot more fun when you only have to focus on one character for, the first, like, I don't know, day or two of the character, right? Like, not having to worry about other pieces of gear on the ground that don't pertain to me. I can make my loot filter more strict. I don't have to worry about the horrid stash management for COF. Like, I really like COF. Like, I love COF. I just never could play it before if I wanted to make that kind of content that I normally make, where I make a bunch of different characters with like high budgets, because, the stash management was awful. But if I play in solo character found, I completely dodge all of that. So that's great, dude. I don't know. I think this is just my preferred way of playing the game, where, I start every character fresh. Because not only does it, it's more enjoyable for me, but it also adds kind of like a layer of authenticity that doesn't really exist in Last Epoch currently. Because, like, you'll see, like, all these people playing these builds and stuff, but you're like, how many hours did you put into it? It's like, oh, you killed Abberoth, but you spent like 20 hours shoving your face into it. That's not impressive. That's just boring and sad. And I was like, okay, all right, how do we fix this? And I spent like a couple of days not playing the game and kind of just sitting there, not even like playing Last Epoch, with like my head like swimming. And I realized, okay, all right, let's fucking play the game and let's have fun. Okay? Because people don't like watching other people when they're not having fun. So let's have some fun. And that's what we're doing today. So sorry for the long intro. I just wanted to get some thoughts out on stuff. So we're going to be playing Ignite Hammer Throw Paladin today. The concept and the idea is we throw out a bunch of hammers and they apply a bunch of ignites. The main reason why we're playing this currently is because recently the Paladin got reworked, and it got a node at the top of it that makes it so that whenever you press Holy Aura, during the duration of that Holy Aura, all of your ignites deal 50% more damage. Also, as well, Hammer Throw also got buffed as well, as one of its nodes got changed from a hit damage node to a generic more damage node. If you don't know, generic more damage nodes in trees apply to ailments applied by said skill. So this one specific node got changed from hit damage to just generic more damage, which means that it works on, hammers. So not only do we get the 50% more damage on the top of the Paladin tree, we also got the 50% more damage inside Hammer's tree. And it's okay. It's like a fine build. There's one big problem with the build, in my opinion, is it sucks at Orbis. And not for the reason you think. It's not because the characters don't have damage or survivability. Like, I was doing an 800 corruption Orbis on day 2, like self-found gear. Like, that was completely acceptable, right? My problem with it is Orbis just has such a small ass. And this has been always a problem in general for a lot of my builds, specifically things like Hammer Throw and Multi-Shot, where Orbis has such a small hitbox in comparison to the rest of the game. Because the way that hammers work is they kind of like circle around you and hit the enemy multiple times. But if the enemy's hitbox is small, you don't hit the same target multiple times. Like a good example, on the Reign of Dragons boss, like the Big Bone Daddy, I'll get to like 2k stacks of Ignite, while on Orbis, I'll struggle to get to 500. And like I said, that's just Orbis having such a flat ass. Like, I think he has the flattest ass in Eterra, dude. Like, low key. Like, even Abberoth gets to 99 stacks right now, currently, with my current setup. So Orbis is like, definitely a specific problem with this build. And they also buffed Orbis. Orbis was apparently bugged, and he was much squishier than everything else in the game. And he's actually a real threat now. Orbis isn't like a pushover anymore. Like, he actually does damage. He actually gets really fast, and he actually has like way more HP than before. Like, he'll actually be more difficult than the Harbingers after pushing a lot of corruption, because if you don't know, Orbis actually scales with corruption. So yeah, that's interesting. So let's talk about, now we talk about the offense. We're playing Ignite Hammers, right? And we're casting smites and stuff like that. What are we doing for defenses? Well, we're just playing a Paladin. We're capped on block. The guaranteed 1 LP stuff helps out a lot. You can get stuff like, a Bulwark of the Last Abyss with tier 7 block chance very quickly. And with that and sigils, you can block your cap your block so quickly, right? So that feels really good. And we're also utilizing Ashes of Mortality. Since we're stacking so many ignites on bosses, we end up with easily like 1,000 ward all the time in boss fights, and that ends up feeling very comfy to be able to face tank stuff, especially with all the EHP. Because right now I'm sitting at like 70% armor for the paladin, and that will apply of course to the ward as well, and so will the block and all the less damage taken modifiers. So you end up just being absurdly tanky for most bosses. Now of course, for a day 2 character, mind you, like this is 2 days worth of playtime and solo character found in COF, so like pretty much like I am shoehorning myself as much as possible here. Like this is the most amount of debuffs you could possibly put on your character, other than maybe like hardcore, maybe, but like no one likes hardcore. Let's be real. So like yeah, this the damage was a little bit lower than I would like it to be, obviously, for a hammer throw build. But I feel like as though that's not because the damage is lower, it's because the expectation of damage is much higher, because with Uber Abberoth being in the game, right, you kind of want your builds to do significantly more damage. And hammer throw, let me tell you, has not caught up with the times. Like it's okay, it does plenty of damage, but like it does not do enough to do Uber Abberoth, at least the ailment version. I know the hit version with like Enra's technique could probably do it easily, but like the ailment version isn't nearly as good, at least without absurd amounts of investment, right? Like I'm not talking about like spending 3 months investing into gear. I'm talking about like a week worth of like farming gear and stuff like that. Like I don't think hammer throw is definitely Uber Abberoth viable at all. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this. If you haven't already, I would heavily suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. But let's talk about the build, shall we? Let's go in game. All right, so here we are logging in. We're going to be leveling with, of course, hammer throw. Of course, we're going to be leveling with hammer throw, right? Like, why wouldn't we? We're playing a hammer throw build in endgame. And I can tell you the Celestial MTX on hammer throw is absolutely gorgeous. That on top of the Cosmic Smite MTX makes this build look so much better, in my opinion. Now, of course, right now we do normal hammers where we throw one out and then it returns. A tip: do not immediately take the node that turns off return. It's actually a DPS loss until later. You want to just save your 2 level ups after your first level up. So you want to wait till level 3 to put nodes into hammer throw. Otherwise, you're kind of just nerfing your hammer throw in general because you want the return, as it ends up doing more damage. So make sure to do that. There, now we have the spiral hammer throw. Now, a lot of people are going to ask me, Dread, why are you not going for orbit? Well, orbit costs a lot of mana. If you don't know, +4 mana to hammer throw is a lot of extra mana, and it ends up just being just awful in the end game, like feeling wise, because you have to invest into mana regen, right? You have to actually invest into minus mana cost rings with like exalted modifiers. Now, if you're rich and like you have plenty of gear, maybe you can get away with that, but it's definitely not the best way to go. I don't know why I'm just standing here getting hit, but whatever. But yeah, I prefer the spiral in place hammers. I personally don't like orbit. I think there's nothing wrong with orbit. What am I doing? I'm like watching the gameplay and I'm just like, why am I stopping? I'm probably like trying to change my music or something. But yeah, I like spiral in place way more than orbit personally. But if you want to try orbit, go right ahead, bro. I think the main reason I like Orbit is because it kind of incentivizes a fire and forget playstyle. Now, one thing to note, there is a chest at the beginning. There's like a chest at the beginning of the war camp, I believe, over here. Yeah, like over here, there's like a chest there that has a 2-handed spear that has like 40% ignite chance that always drops. It's like a personal item from the chest. You see the one in the upper right, like the little chest there, that always drops with 40% chance to ignite like every single time. And that's very good for us, as of course, as a hammer build, we're hitting a lot. Oh, I died for it. I don't know what the heck I was doing. I must have been like performing surgery on the fucking side, dude. Now here's Act 2. As you can see, once we get access to 2 projectiles each throw, it ends up feeling a lot better for us. Make sure to grab as much ailment chance as possible. If you want a more detailed leveling guide, like a full leveling guide, I actually put one on the channel. It's like a 3-hour VOD of me taking the entire character from level 1 all the way to 40, and it's exactly word for word how I leveled this character. So if I'm like blitzing through this and you're like trying to pay attention and all that, like seriously, go watch that VOD if you really need help. And like if you ever have a question of like, oh, what does Dread do to get this passive point and all that, literally all of that is in that video. So make sure to go check that out if you need that kind of help. But yeah, once we get all 3 nodes into the hammer throw, it starts feeling a lot better, like into the spiraling. Like even like, oh my god, the celestial MTX feels so good. Like it looks so good. Like just watching the celestial hammer throw, like oh my goodness, that looks so much better. And the damage is always pretty absurd early on with a triple hammer throw. Now the biggest problem that you're gonna have is the mana sustain is a little bad, unfortunately, early on. Like here, you're just going to be like kind of just waiting and pressing hammer throw. But once you get to the point where you can grab the nodes that give you mana whenever you use vengeance, it helps out immensely, at least in my opinion. So we're going to be playing a Paladin today. Why Paladin? Well, Paladin gives us, like I said, the 50% more ignite chance at the top of the tree. That's very important. Like, like 50% more ignite damage. I mean, that's very important. It also gives us 15% more damage at base from the mastery passive, which is insane, right? That's absurd. And then also as well, it gives us access to a lot of nodes at the top of the tree that give us extra ailment chance and stuff like that, extra block chance. You could play this as a Void Knight, technically. Like, there's nothing that stops you from playing this as a Void Knight. Technically, the Echo chance is comparable to the Ignite chance, is actually a little bit better, as we'll talk about later. So, like, in theory, you could play this as a Void Knight, and you could play this as a Forge Guard with like a two-handed axe in your main hand, and then, you know, a shield. But the problem is, for non-melee attacks, going from a one-handed weapon and a two-handed weapon isn't really that good, because the implicit on Dragonbone axes is 100% generic bleed chance. That's a one-hander. And then all of the implicits on the two-handed axes are all for melee. So if you're not doing a melee build, it ends up not being that much of a like benefit. Hence why we don't really go Forge Guard for these kind of builds, because when you do, you know, bleed, ignite, or whatever, right? Like you don't end up with that much value from running a two-hander for the most part, right? Other than bigger stat nodes. But of course, that gets, you know, countered by the less damage. And then of course, you know, Paladin has all the more damage. So pretty much it's either Paladin or Void Knight, in my opinion. All right, so here we are around at level 20. This is when we get access to Healing Hands Traversal. Healing Hands Traversal is one of the smoothest traversal skills in the entire game, and it kind of just lets you zoom early on. There's no reason to not use it. That in combination with Javelin. So Javelin has a mobility node inside of it too with the banner version. Now, this does not put all your other traversal skills on cooldown, which is why it just functions so well with these two, right? So we just use we use we use hammer throw a little bit, then use our healing hands, then use our javelin, then use hammer throw a little bit while we're waiting for cooldown, and it ends up being a really fast playstyle early on, and it makes up for the fact that Sentinel feels kind of sluggish early on, at least for me personally. A lot of other people think that this is overpowered. I think that this is just to make up for the fact that Sentinel doesn't have like that good of a teleport skill immediately off the bat, like all the other classes, like teleport and transplant. Like you do have volatile reversal, but volatile reversal, right? Like I don't like volatile reversal. So like, you know, this is what we get pretty much. This is all we get. So it's nice. Now here's the Emperor's Remains. So I did end up getting a little bit lucky here, and I hit a Viper Tail. Viper Tail is a unique belt that just gives you a bunch of generic poison chance, and pretty much early on, you don't have like a preferred damage source for ailments. You just want as many ailments as possible, right? You want as much bleed, poison and ignite as possible. You want to be doing as much damage as possible. As you can see here now, whenever I zoop my mana out with Hammer Throw, I can just use Vengeance to fill it back up. Vengeance gives you a defensive buff when you use it, right? Whenever you have like the, the auto, like the, what is it called? The rebuke up or whatever it's called. I can't remember the name of it. And then Rive just attacks faster. So it's just like personal preference there. I am going to skip Act 3 mainly just because, like, I've showed this leveling setup so many times in the past and it doesn't really change that much. If you want a more detailed leveling guide, like I said, check out the description below. But there you go. Twins are dead. I'm going to unlock all my passives and stuff now. So here's our first mono. Usually the first mono of a character is a little bit more struggle bussy on most characters, but we didn't really have that big of an issue with Hammer Throw. And that's just because it's just a very solid concept right out the gate. And as long as we build enough Ignite chance and Ailment chance, right, it feels great. Now that we're in monos, though, the biggest thing that we need to do is find a Malin's Hubris. Malin's Hubris converts all your bleeds into ignites, and it kind of like combines the scaling of your bleeds and ignites. It kind of like harmonizes the tree and such like that. Right now, we're using a two-handed axe so that we can get benefit from bleed while wielding an axe, and also as well the double node on the Forge Guard passive. Right now, that is the preferred way of play early on. Of course, later on, you want to swap into a one-handed weapon and a shield. But right now, early on, a two-hander is best for the damage that it provides. A shield would provide some defense, but we get way more damage from running a two-handed axe here. As you can see, though, I blinged my character out. I love the new MTX, man. Here's our A-bomb kill. Very respectable for, Hammer Throw. Obviously, it's not the fastest A-bomb kill I've ever done, but for the clear of Hammer Throw, like, that's good enough in my opinion. Yeah, you got to remember that like Hammer Throw is better at clearing monos than it is at killing bosses, in my opinion. Like, if you want a boss killer or something that kills bosses more, Javelin would be more up your alley, in my opinion. But like for clear, uh, like Hammer Throw is like amazing. Also, as well, make sure you're checking out idols on the ground for hammer. I mean, for smite on throwing hit idols. They end up juicing your single target a lot, as smites do a lot of damage, so of course we want as many. They did nerf them to making it so you can only have 10 per 2 seconds, which does mean that you don't get nearly as many as you do before, especially on Hammer Throw, but it's still a respectable amount and it's still worthwhile putting on your character, as like you end up getting a large amount of damage from it. So you might as well run it, right? Like there's no reason not to run Smite, right? So that's cool. But yeah, with the Cosmic Smite on top of the Celestial Hammers, the build looks so fucking pretty, bro. It looks so pretty. I love it. Now, something to note, the early game has changed a little bit in last Epoch. What you want to do is you want to actually bum rush cemeteries very early on and do as many as possible until you get access to the node that turns off Arena Echoes. So unfortunately, due to their design, Arena Echoes are actually a big time waste in general. In the monolith, you end up spending a lot of time just sitting there and waiting for mobs to spawn. Even with all the improvements that they've made, it's still just worse content than if you just did a normal monolith. So you end up just turning off Arena Echoes, and it ends up improving your run significantly. In general, it's like way better to turn off Arena Echoes, and then after that you don't have to worry about the woven stuff until like empowered monos. But I would heavily suggest going into a cemetery or two, doing a few woven echoes, and turning off your Arena Echoes, as it just makes it so much easier, in my opinion. Makes it feel so much better. Now here's our Rye here. As you can see, our damage is scaling very easily, and that's just because Hammer Throw is a very solid skill. Getting access as well to all the good nodes inside Paladin, all that help out a lot. I don't actually get access to the 50% more Ignite damage for a while, and that's just because it's just not worth it early on. Early on, there are better stats to be chasing for, like more ailment chance and stuff like that. So later on, it's fine. We'll be talking about that node. Don't worry. That node, we will have a discussion about it. Oh, we will have a discussion about it. Boop, bird is dead. Same thing, here's our Lagan. Nothing changes too much with Lagan, to be honest. All of these early mono fights, like the mono bosses, they kind of all just kind of meld together and they kind of feel similar. Like you just end up doing them anyways. Like you end up doing them as fast as possible. I was streaming while doing this too, so we were just zooming, right? There you go, Lagan dead. Same thing. Here's Dragon. But Dragon's a little bit more interesting though, because we have way more damage on him. Because as I said before in the intro, because Dragon is way bigger of a target, it ends up giving us way more damage. So that's cool, right? That's amazing. So that's why we're farming Dragon for a corruption push on this character, by the way. So here's our first level 90 mono. If I'm not mistaken, this is when I get access to my Malin's Hubris. No, I don't have Malin's net yet. Never mind. Well, eventually we get Malin's Hubris. It takes a while to get it. But even with Bleeding Ignite, as long as you go for damage over time on your gear, one of the biggest problems with this character is you're kind of just waiting, to be honest, to get your Malin's Hubris before you start investing in the gear, because you really want to start putting elemental damage over time on your gear and such, but you can't really do that when you don't do all elemental damage over time, right? Like you kind of need to wait a little bit. So you're in this awkward kind of like half and half period where you're just scaling damage over time. You're just putting on gear that matters. But thankfully this build is really good at doing that, thankfully. Here's our shaman fight. Immediately getting like slammed with a bunch of boulders is funny, but like I said, you want to corral them into a small area so that your hammers overlap, so that you can, damage all three of them at once. You definitely don't want to have them, be spread out, as that would cause you to deal significantly less damage. They're much like Orbis in the way where they have very small hitboxes, so you definitely don't want them to like spread out too much. Thankfully, they have less HP than a normal boss has because it's three of them, right? So it doesn't feel that bad, right? But it's definitely something to keep in thought, like that, they are smaller, so they will take longer to kill. All right, here's our deer kill. As you can see, we're actually getting decently tanky. We're already at 1700 HP, which doesn't sound like that much, but it's definitely enough for what we're doing right now. So here's our first Harbinger. So, like I said before, the Harbingers, the light ones, they have that smaller hitbox I was talking about, but they definitely don't have as small of a hitbox. Like they're kind of more in the mid size of hitbox, right? Definitely for sure. Like they're not as tiny as Oribus's ass, but Harbinger of Fear definitely has a smaller ass than, like, let's say the fatter Harbingers, right? A lot of people ask me, how do you unlock COF Dread on a fresh character even though you don't get to the, final chapter? Well, I use a portal charm and I teleport to T1 Jurla and I kill her real quick, and then I go through her to chapter 9 to the dungeon skip, and then go do my chapter 9 stuff. So it's like very quick and easy, like very quick and easy, to be honest. So here's our first empowered mono. Thank you, Ziggy, for the raid, by the way, the other day, Lamau. So yeah. At this point, what we're trying to do is we're trying to search for a few things. We're trying to search for a Malin's Hubris. We're trying to search for a decent two-handed axe that works until we transition to one-handed and block. We're trying to search for just chunky gear. Like we're trying to find gear for chunkiness, right? And then we're also trying to find woven echoes to, of course, focus on finishing our woven echo web, because the woven tree is absurdly strong in terms of investment and all that. Like you end up getting so much value out of it, specifically the imprints. Now, something that I didn't do, but you should probably do, is you should spec into the nodes that drop more woven echoes, like rare enemies drop woven echoes and stuff like that. I didn't go for that. I beelined for the imprint nodes, and it kind of stunted my progression significantly. I would heavily suggest getting the rare enemies in your monos drop, like, woven echoes and stuff like that, champions, and then getting like the woven echo modifiers. I'll be doing that from now on, in my opinion. We don't even have mailings yet. Jeez. So just a quick DPS check just to see what we're up to right now. Right now we're at like 300k ticks. That's respectable for this point in the game. That's like 600k DPS. It's definitely not the best, but it's like better than most builds. And of course, we're hammer throw, right? Damage isn't really a problem. We have really good clear, so it's not that big of a deal, right? All right, guys. So we just got to empowered mottos, and I just did my first cemetery. Now what we're going to do is we're going to just place down our stuff around just to get all of our points here. So we're just going to get all our points here. So I'm just going to place them randomly. It doesn't really matter. We just want completion currently. All I want is to be able to go do all these and get our Weaver points. Right now on last Epoch, getting your Weaver's points is absurdly important. So you want to get them as quickly as possible. Like the Weaver tree specifically is absurdly strong, and you should be trying to get it as quickly as possible, as there's a lot of points, specifically the imprint nodes, that allow you to super juice your drops. And especially the Weaver woven riches and loomed riches are very important as well. So you want to get your points as quickly as possible. So here's our second harbinger. Speaking about damage and survivability, we ended up investing a little bit more in our survivability. And yeah, as you can see here, we're kind of just sitting there face tanking. It's kind of entertaining that we can just sit here and just face tank the Harbinger of Chaos. I kind of realized, thanks to access to all the leech that we currently have. By the way, we're trying to find a bleeding heart as well. We haven't found one at this point, so we're using the leech gloves. But later on, we'll definitely be swapping out of the leech gloves when we get access to, like, there's like a relic too that gives elemental damage over time leech, and that helps out a lot. But as you can see here, we're just completely face fucking the Harbinger of Chaos. We did finally drop a Malin's Hubris, and I do have a pair of throwing attack speed gloves to throw on it immediately. So we end up with, of course, throwing attack speed. Thank you, COF. Thank you very much. Now that we have Malin's Hubris, we need, of course, now a Bleeding Heart. That's important. We need a Twisted Heart eventually for Chonk. We need a good Exalted Chest with Ignite Duration on it. That's very important. And then also as well, we need a pair of Fiery Dragon Shoes. Those are pretty much what we're looking for currently. As you can see though, if you compare like my ailment chance versus like other bosses, the Shade of Orbis has like the smallest hitbox this side of the Mississippi. It's fucking crazy the difference in hitbox size. Now here's Harbinger of Treason. As you can see, plenty of damage thanks to us getting access to our 1LP slam so quickly. That actually kind of upgraded the Zero to Hero series a little bit, having access to guaranteed slams. Normally for the Zero to Hero series, right, I wouldn't have access to decent gear, but now with the 1LP slams, like I have a throwing attack speed pair of like Malins, I eventually get a bleeding heart, like I have decent HP, right? All of that combined ends up making a much tankier character. Now, just to give you an idea here, this is how we are on the Shade of Orbis, right? With our ignites. And then you just compare it to the Harbinger, right? We're getting way more ignite stacks on the Harbinger, even though the Harbinger isn't that much bigger. But like being slightly bigger is such a huge thing. Like I'm pretty sure Orbis's hitbox is the size of a pinprick, right? Like I don't know. Like it's so small. It's so bloody small. And I don't know why. I don't know why. Now this is when we get access to a pair of Fiery Dragon Shoes. Of course, we're playing COF, so we end up with a 0 LP pair. I mean 1 LP pair, which is nice. I am crafting on it because there's that chance that it could, crit and actually add another modifier. There you go. Pair of Fiery Dragon Shoes that we end up with the entire run. Now here's the Harbinger of Ash. Unfortunately, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, that necrotic degen that he puts down, even with this amount of leech and this amount of tankiness, that necrotic dot leech, bro, that he puts down does so much damage, and the necrotic explosion it shoots out too, and of course all the overlapping AoEs, like it's way better just to respect his like size and stuff like that and just like move around, like moving him around and stuff. It's way better to just move him around than it is to like try to face fuck everything. Mainly just because like, accidentally dying sucks a lot on these, because whenever you accidentally die, you have to redo the whole fucking like boss every single time. So it sucks. So it's better just to be cautious than to like try to, push them faster, right? Now at this point, I'm trying to get a Ashes of Mortality. Now that we have a Malin's Hubris stacking Ignite chance, we're just trying to get an Ashes of Mortality. And I actually end up dropping a 2 LP pair here from Cremoris. It's way easier to go get it now, thanks to, of course, how the dungeon keys work, and it's a lot more comfy now, in my opinion. Now, at this point, I was investing in trying to get a lot of Woven Echo points, so there's going to be a little bit of a montage of Woven Echo points here. Now, I will say I did die to the Voidborn Nemesis a few times. That's because I foolishly thought that I could do this with no void resistance. And, the game was like, you came in here with no void res? What a fucking idiot, am I right? Thankfully, the Woven Echoes don't go away when you're done with them. But the Voidborn Nemesis is no joke, dude. He's really tanky, and he's like he does a lot of damage. And he's got the same problem that Orbis has, where he's got that small pinprick ass, right? So it's just like Hammer Throw is not the best build to be doing the Voidborn Nemesis day one of the character with no Void Res as a melee build, right? Here's me doing Cenotaph. Cenotaph is absurdly obnoxious as it gives a fat 72% increased health and damage, and it's not comfy whatsoever. Like, let me tell you, this fight actually is slightly difficult due to, of course, the immunity phases that the Woven Firstborn gets and everything. Like, this is not a joke, dude. Like, this fight day one is like very hard because there's so many things that make you go slower. I'm playing a melee build, right? The all of the woven enemies and all that. Like, this is not a joke of a fight, dude. Like, it actually, like, and the Woven Firstborn, he fucks, dude. He does a lot of damage. And of course, like I said, we're pretty much doing a cemetery at double the amount of HP. And I'm pretty sure this version of the Woven Firstborn is bigger. So like, there's a lot of problems. Like, the biggest problem is just being a melee build. Like, this fight is like pretty much anti melee completely. Now here's our Harbinger of War. It was actually relatively easy. We're getting enough damage from our gear that like we can kind of like blast past all these. It's kind of funny due to now the way that we get guaranteed LP on things. It makes the earlier stages of the Zero to Hero run way easier, to be honest. So here's our Ashes of Mortality Slam. I didn't have a ring for it until now, but here you go. I wanted the HP, but we ended up with Fizz Res instead, which is fine. But throwing attack speed is completely acceptable on this. Unfortunately, we'll lose the -3 mana cost, but we can, make that up in the Hammer Throw tree. But this is like where it just feels kind of comfy. Ashes of Mortality completely carried this run, in my opinion. So I keep saying the Monolith clear is good, and that's just because we're playing Hammer Throw, dude. Hammer Throw just has really good Monolith clear every single time, whether you're playing Orbit or Spiral, either one. Mainly just because like the fire and forget nature of hammers just feels so good when you're running through monos. Like I said, if you did Orbit, your clear would be better, but your mana cost would be way more laborious. So make sure to think about that when you grab the Orbit node. You will have to invest more into minus mana cost. You might have to even go out of your way to get a Ashes of Mortality that has minus mana cost on it, which unfortunately chips into like your LP budget and stuff like that, and it means you need to get like a double prefix Ashes of Mortality, and like there's a lot of problems with that. So make sure like when you do go into Orbit, like pay attention to that. Or you can use Foot of the Mountain. Foot of the Mountain gives you like minus mana cost when you're standing still and stuff like that, and that could be acceptable. But it's definitely a mixed bag, in my opinion. Definitely a mixed bag. But yeah, here we are killing exiled mages. Make sure to kill every single exiled mage. The Rune Prison Complex, the one that gives you a Weaver Point tree, like Weaver Point, it requires you to actually, kill exiled mages, right? So make sure to do that. Here's Harbinger of Pride. We're going to be kind of zooming past these boss fights, but as you can see, the ward gain on bosses is absurd with like Ashes of Mortality, it just lets you completely face fuck everything, and it's absolutely wonderful. But here we do actually get Throne of Ambition, which is another 40% more damage. We also can see we did swap into block in a one-hander, mainly just because, you know, it made me feel significantly comfy at this point. Here's Harbinger of Hatred, same thing, different boss. Pretty much a bigger hitbox, which means more ignites, which means more damage, and of course more, ward stacking. Like I said, though, pretty much like we're like all the bosses we've done, other than specifically Orbis, have been just a complete face fuck fest. Like you don't have to think while bossing with this build. Like all you have to do is just manage your mana a little bit, and like you're good to go. Like I said, you do have to like press Holy Aura's button, which by the way we'll talk about in a second here. But like, yeah, like it feels great. Now, of course, the boss rushing time. Here's Harbinger of Tyranny. Uh, wasn't really that difficult either, right? Like simply face fuck him. Harbinger of Defilement as well, getting all of my Forgotten Night points and trying to unlock Abberoth as quickly as possible here. As you can see, we're already at 3100 HP. We're an absolute unit at this point in progression. Now, of course, make sure you're going into tombs and stuff like that, tombs and cemeteries. When you grab the nodes that make rares in tombs and cemeteries drop extra woven echoes, it super juices your progression. Also, as another tip, these tomb guardians, these guys, they drop more woven idols and stuff like that. So definitely kill them as well. They drop like more of the woven idols and stuff like that, the weaver ones. But yeah, try to clear out tombs when you can. Like I said, grab the nodes that make champions and rares drop woven echoes, and then you'll end up with way more woven echoes than, you know, me. Here's a really very like scary situation here with Rodma. Rodma, for some reason, I don't know why. Rodma is an absolute unit. It has increased damage and power at the same time. Like, to give you an idea of how tanky we are at this point, like, look at me just trying to like actually kill this Rodma with increased damage and power gain. Like, it's absurd. Like, we can face tank the world at this point. Like, if you want to build where you don't have to worry about your own survivability, this is the build for you, my friend. Like, it feels great. Of course, your single target isn't as high as it could be, but you know, you can still face tank stuff because you're a paladin naturally, right? And you have good clear as a paladin as well, which is great. And here's our 10th Harbinger. Now, normally, this would be when I talk about my thoughts about the build and stuff, but the run ain't over, kiddo. We got more to do. There's way more content in the game now. We're pushing like corruption. Who gives a shit? We got more shit to do. We got woven echo points to go get. We got Abberoth to kill. We're doing it the whole 9 yards. We're doing all the content except for specifically Uber Abberoth because he's scary. But yeah, here is our 10th Harbinger. As you can see, the Reign of Dragons boss is so much easier to kill versus everything else, specifically because of the fact that he's big and chunky. So if you want to have an easy boss when you're pushing through corruption, this is definitely the one to go. Like, as you can see, I'm literally face fucking the fucking necrotic like explosion. Like the necrotic like beat, like that stuff does a lot of damage. Look, I'm just tanking it like a boss. Like, it's insane the amount of chunk that this character has at this point. Of course, you know, it's a paladin. That's what they're supposed to do. And I'm kind of happy that paladin's finally in that spot, because paladin was always kind of like a, what do you call, a laughing stock of the entire community. It was like supposed to be one of the tankiest classes, but it never really met that requirement until now. Finally, paladins can be tanky like they're supposed to be. Amazing, right? And we do end up dropping a 1 OP Twisted Heart, which we'll slam here in a second. Now, here's our Twisted Heart slam. I went for T7 Ellie Dot because at this point, I can face tank the world, but I need damage. I need all the damage I can muster right now, to be honest with you. Speaking of damage, this is my first Abberoth attempt. I did it first try, so that was quick. But the problem is, like, we can face fuck him pretty easily. Now, we don't do that much damage, unfortunately. This is where about in the character where I kind of realized that I'm not doing enough damage, to be honest. So I actually spend a majority of the rest of the character's lifetime trying to push more damage, eke out more survivability so that I can put that survivability points, like all the points on the passive tree, into more damage. Mainly just because like we can face tank everything pretty much, right? What's the point in like trying to get tankier? We need to do damage, right? And that's what this Abberoth kill reminded me of. Just try to think of this Zero to Hero series as like it's like the normal one, but it's extended. It's like the extended edition, right? That's kind of cool, right? But yeah, this has been really fun. Uh, obviously we're gonna push even more than this. Like this is not the end of the run. Like I'm like this is my first Abberoth kill. I actually do I think 3 total. But I do like one at the end just to show the difference in DPS here. As you can see though, like I said, we're not doing as much damage. But remember, this is like day 1.5 of the character at this point. Like we just got done with our 10 out of 10 Harbinger run. Like I immediately went and tried to kill Abberoth the moment I got 10 out of 10 Harbingers done. So like this is like right smack dab after, mind you. So like, for day 1, being able to face tank Abberoth and all that for the most part, like that's great, dude. I think I could face tank the beam too, by the way, but I just don't try because like why would you risk that, right? But still, there's our first Abberoth down. We have some DPS to go get. I need way more DPS than this currently. So here we're doing more Woven Echoes. Right now we're doing a Fading Brink, which is all 10 Harbingers in a row. Unfortunately, because of the lack of DPS that we have, this actually takes a bit of time. We actually kill each Harbinger in about like a minute and a half, but because there's 10 of them in a row, it actually ends up lasting a decent amount of time. So you're just kind of just sitting there face tanking stuff and just waiting for them to spawn. Unfortunately, the Void spawn, like the Void Terror things, they do way more damage than the Harbingers ever could, which is unfortunate. I don't know why that's the case. But here we end up doing this. I'm probably going to attach a montage to the end of this, by the way. Now here's a more exciting boss fight. We're doing the Confluence of Oblivion immediately. And, you could fight each Orbis, one by one, but who the fuck wants to do that? Let's fucking fight them all at once, baby. Let's go. Oh my goodness, is this just a fiesta of nonsense? Every single time I do like this fight, it's just like, what is going on my screen? Thankfully, we're at Paladin, so we can just phase tank it all for the most part. It's actually really funny how much we're phase tanking through all this, right? Remember, this is a character that just got done with their 10 out of 10 Harbinger run. So now we're just kind of like doing our Woven Echoes to get more Woven tree points, right? So we can invest more in our tree. As you can see here, we're just kind of just face tanking everything, and it's really funny, dude. Like it's just like running around and getting like gang banged by a bunch of Orobuses, dude. This fight is like why I play ARPGs, dude. Like this is where the fun is at, right here. Trying to do this at 1,000 corruption must be an exhilarating ride. Like this is a real like fun fight, in my opinion. Boop. Now we're done. Ah, so satisfying. Now, because I realized that we weren't doing that much damage, I went and decided to start farming for better items. So the first thing that we're farming for is a 2 LP Bleeding Heart with good mods. I ended up with a 2 LP Bleeding Heart, but it didn't end up with any good mods. So here we are farming prophecies for them. Now I'm just going to do like a little bit of a montage here. Now, after this, we did get our 2 LP Bleeding Heart, and we're going to try to slam HP and Ellie dot on it, but we do end up only hitting damage over time. But that's good enough for now, currently. And eventually you could go re-roll that, right? So here, this is where I farm a few Harbingers for, of course, a Bulwark of the Last Abyss with 1 LP, so that I can slap tier 7 block chance on it so that I can get block camped. We do end up doing it after the first Harbinger, which was pretty quick. So we end up slamming one immediately, which feels amazing being block capped, by the way. Like, feels absolutely amazing. Now, of course, here we go turtling items. I don't actually end up with anything good from this. I end up with a 2 LP pair of Malin's Hubris that I was trying to use, but the biggest problem was I didn't end up with a good pair of gloves to slam into it. So, and at this point, we're reaching the end of the character pretty much. Like, we're just going to be pushing corruption after this. So, you know, like I said, I end up with a 2 LP pair of Hubris here, but they don't end up being very good, unfortunately. I do end up with some more 2 LP pairs of Bleeding Hearts, but I was hoping for a 3 LP pair, of course, so we can get double prefix. But I do hit the 2 LP pair of Malins, but unfortunately, it didn't end up, you know, hitting anything. Unfortunately, right? We also land a 2 LP Twisted Heart, and I'm trying to hit Ellie dot and HP on it, but we end up failing, unfortunately. We don't hit what we want, and it feels bad. Feels bad, man. Feels bad. Here's 600 corruption gameplay. As you can see, like, the build is doing just fine. We're doing plenty of damage for the content, considering this is day 2 of the character. The only problem is, like, I wish I could have squeezed out a little bit more damage. I was getting to like 800 ticks on the dummy, which is like 1.6 million DPS, which is enough to do endgame pretty much, but it's definitely not like enough to like make me happy. But at the end of the run, you know, we're playing COF. Like, COF is like way harder to get your gear started in comparison to Merchant's Guild. So like, overall, I think the character performed very well with the constraints that we gave it. So I'm pretty happy with it. So here's some 600 corruption gameplay. Like, thankfully, Hammer Throw is very zoomy, even in the face of all this dot damage. Like, we're doing just fine, thanks to the fact that we have so much leech from a Bleeding Heart. Like, we're doing great, even though, you know, it's not as good as I'd want. So here's an Orbis at around like 700 corruption. This is what I was talking about in terms of things just being too scary with Orbis. As you can see, we don't end up doing that much damage to him, specifically because of the fact that like it's because his body is so small. I can't do damage to him when his like actual body is so small, and they also buffed him this patch. Orbis is no joke anymore, dude. And like as a hammer throw build, it just kind of, psychotic to know that like your damage against certain bosses is higher, mainly just because of just mechanics and the fact that Orbis has such a small fucking ass. Dude, I swear to God, Orbis having a small ass like just like ruins my psyche. Because like I'll do this and it'll be like annoying to do and all that, right? But then like I'll go do a Harbinger and I'll just completely face fuck him and face tank him. But then with an Orbis, it's like an actual difficult fight. Like it's supposed to be the other way around. The Harbingers are supposed to be the difficult ones. Like this is crazy. Like the only reason it's so difficult is because I can't do enough damage to him because of how small he is. He's got such a small frame. I'm going fucking insane talking about this. I hate it. I hate the fact he is such a small ass. I swear to fucking God. God, I'm going fucking insane at this point, dude. I'm going fucking insane. It's like I'm just watching this gameplay back and I'm just so angry because I'm just watching it. I'm just like, dude, we should be at double this amount of Ignite stacks. Now here's some Monolith gameplay at 800 corruption. As you can see, we're plenty tanky for it. Remember, this character is like 2 days worth of effort, right? We use COF to get better gear, but I didn't like kind of like grind too much. Like this is only 2 days. Like we got most of our woven tree built out though as well. Like this feels pretty good for the most part. Obviously it's a little bit of a struggle bus right now in terms of damage, but that's only because, I failed like 3 slams in a row. So of course my damage is going to be a little bit lower. At this point, what you would do is you just kind of stick at 700 corruption for a while and you just farm and farm and farm until you get better upgrades. And then you push up to 1,000 corruption. I only pushed this far specifically for the video because, I'm stress testing these builds, right? Remember, when you're watching this, you're watching me try to go as fast as possible and with as little gear as possible to show that the character is capable of doing it at lower gear thresholds, because a newer player watching this isn't going to like understand everything. They're not going to understand how to like manipulate, woven echoes to get more gear. They're not going to understand any of this shit. All they're going to do is they're just going to like follow the guide and put on the gear. And then sometimes their gear isn't going to be as good as mine. So I try to, push my characters to the absolute extreme just to showcase that like, it can do the content. It'll do just fine. Of course, like I said, I wish I had a little bit more single target, but it was fine. It was fine for day 2, in my opinion. Definitely fine for day 2, right? Now here's an 800 corruption harbinger. This is the second to last boss I killed. Of course, as you can see, like we're just kind of just face tanking him a little bit. I do dodge the red slam, mainly just because I've had that like kill me before with damage variance. So like, being careful. He does put like 4 dot pools on top of me and I leech through all 4 of those dot pools. Like that was pretty crazy to watch that. So we are definitely tanky enough to do things. We just don't have as much single target as I'd like. But the thing is like, so there's kind of like a trifecta of stats. You have tankiness, you have clear, and you have single target damage. Those are your three stats. This character puts all its stats into tankiness and clear. It does not put that many stats into single target. So usually most builds fall in this kind of trifecta. Either they have really good tank, really good damage, but no clear, or like vice versa. Like a good example, Judgment has really good tank and really good damage, but it has like mediocre clear. Like it's worse than Hammer Throw, right? So it's just kind of like a good balance of those 3 stats. There are some builds, like of course the Racing Strike build that has all 3 at the same time, and those are the ones that will probably end up getting nerfed, to be honest with you. All right, so here is the second Abberoth. As you can see, we're doing significantly more damage than we were doing before. That's because we refined the character, we got better gear, and we can just face tank them still, so that's good. Like, it feels great. For day 2 of the league, like this is completely acceptable DPS. It's not blasting ass kinds of DPS, but it's good enough to the point where I wouldn't be appalled by it, if that makes sense. Like, for a paladin where you're just face tanking everything, this is kind of like what paladin is supposed to do. I don't think paladin is supposed to do absurd amounts of damage like judgment's doing right now. This is kind of more in tune of like how I feel a paladin would be in this kind of video game. So that's nice. uh like I said, it's completely acceptable. Now let's talk about the build overall. How do I like it? I think the build is amazing for people who just want to turn their brain off and play the video game. This is the dad gamer of builds. You hold right click, you press Holy Aura every so often, and you slightly manage your mana every so often. And then you can sit in things, sit in AoEs and all that. Now, of course, like I said though, you will be challenged slightly by Orobuses. Like an 800 corruption Oribus is significantly, and I mean by multiple magnitudes, significantly more difficult than Abberoth here. Like, you're watching me face tank everything and all that, but like a good example, like Oribus at 800 corruption does way more damage to me. And that's just because, like I said, we can't stack those ignites, which means we can't get those, ignite stacks, which means we can't get the Ashes of Mortality working. Like, it's an interesting ride. But overall, I enjoyed the build. Would I play it for Uber Abberoth? Hell nah. Hell to the nah. Now, with all that being said, let's go in game and talk about the character more in detail, shall we? So here we are in game with the character. Let's go over the skills. So for Hammer Throw, what's most important is, of course, Iron Spiral. Iron Spiral is like pretty much how the build functions. You can go for Orbit, but like I said in the video, mana costs are a problem, so make sure to be prepared to deal with that, whether that be with, of course, boots or like minus mana cost on your Ashes of Mortality as well. That works as well. Either way, Orbit will require you to invest more into your minus mana, because we already have 5 points in Ballista just to make up for the minus mana cost, which is a little annoying, but it's just how it is. Of course, Catapult for extra hammers, and then we get the generic more damage from Force of Impact, and then we also get the generic more damage from weighted hammers. This allows us to do significant amounts of ailment damage with our hammers, which is great. Then for Smite, Smite is mainly built to do more damage with ignites, as you can see here and here, but it's also built to give me throwing attack speed as well, as we definitely want the throwing attack speed. Now, I haven't done the math. I'm not sure if Immolate is better than Sacrifice, but it's like, neither here nor there. But getting the throwing attack speed while also getting the more damage with ignites, like plopping down 10 smites every 2 seconds, feels pretty good. And it's really good for clear as well, because like it just shits on rares. So that's cool. Holy Aura, mainly just attack speed, more percent damage, and then 10. Eventually, you do want to go into Purification to cleanse, especially if you're stacking cooldown for Holy Aura. So make sure to keep that in mind when you do that. Healing Hands. This is your very generic Healing Hands traversal skill. Nothing too crazy. It's literally the same on every single different character. Nothing changed too much with it. Then we have Soldiers of Hope. Really, all we're doing is getting a percent damage package. We're getting an ignite chance package, and then we're getting a block chance package. And that's it for Soldiers of Hope. That's really all it is. It just helps us cap our block, gives us a lot more damage. It means we don't have to actually press buttons, which is nice. Then that's pretty much it for the skills. Let's talk about the passives that are important. So first passives that are important on this tree is Blade Master. Throwing attack speed is hard to get, so you want as much as possible. 5 points into Weapon Master to get that bleed chance while wielding an axe. We are wielding an axe, and then it gets converted into Ignite thanks to Malin's Hubris. Void Knight, I'm just grabbing this for the less void and physical damage taken, and it's also having me cap my physical and void res. Eventually, you'd want to get more points and put into Dark Maw, but that's hard to get there. Then here's Paladin. Paladin, the most important part is at least 1 point into Rae's Strength. You end up with a lot of shred thanks to strength stacking, a little bit of it. And then this, with all of our chance on hit, means we're always constantly at 10 out of 10 shred stacks. So it's more pen for, that. And also as well, like for rares, it helps us kill those quicker and trash. Then 10 points into Phoenix Strike for that generic Ignite chance, and Fire Pen with Ignite is nice. Eventually 8 out of the 8 of Sanctuary Guardian for that all resistance and armor, feels really good. Shield Wall for even more block chance, which is great. Then eventually we would grab 5 points into Sword of Rae for the more Ignite damage, lots of extra damage. Then right now I'm going for a DPS package where I'm running Covenant of Light for more DPS, and then also as well Covenant of Minion for more movement speed and stuff. This also helps our mana out a little bit as well, which is nice. We're also grabbing 8 points into Penance for extra throwing bleed chance, right? More ignites, good, right? Great. And eventually you'd fill out Reverence of Duality for the increased health. And that's pretty much it for the passives. Let's talk about gear. There's nothing mandatory per se, although you should be getting a pair of Malin's Hubris as humanly fast as possible and slap throwing attack speed on it. That's your first prerogative. Then your next prerogative is to get a Bleeding Heart with 2 LP and get like dot and HP on it. Then the next thing you need to do, in my opinion, is get an axe that has decent stats on it, so that a one-handed axe like a Dragon Bone, so that you can swap into a shield setup instead of the two-handed setup that you see in the video. Cool. Getting an Ashes of Mortality by just using your dungeon keys and your portals to get an Ashes is important, because getting one throwing attack speed feels pretty good, and it ends up letting you face tank a lot of bosses in the end game, and it just has generically good stats on it as well. So cool. Another throwing attack speed, ring here. Getting a pair of fiery dragon shoes with either HP or movement speed feel pretty good. You probably want tier 7 movement speed on these instead, but I ended up with HP because I never dropped another pair of dragon shoes during the run, and I also did not drop a pair of T7 movement speed boots either. So yeah, definitely eventually get a pair with movement speed. You'll feel way quicker in monos. And then the last prerogative, getting a Twisted Heart with like 2 LP and mods that you want, like LE dot HP. Another thing that you're looking for is chance to cast Smite on hit. I would at least get 2 of these at the very least. I'd make sure to get 2 of them at the very least. And then we're also running a Throne of Ambition for 40% more damage. And then the last thing that we're running for idle slots is the Ignite duration and fire damage over time and Ignite on hit. Eventually you'd want like 2 of these, but you'd want like 2 of these. So if you like move this, you'd have 2 of these, but I didn't end up with another one. So I ended up just with like HP instead. But yeah, that's pretty much it for that. Let's talk about the gear overall now. Winged Helm here. Fire, Ignite duration, bleed, strength on the prefixes, HP on a better helmet. I didn't end up with a better helmet here. Dragonbone X, fire damage over time, Ignite, bleed, in that order. And then of course on Dragonbone Axe is your best in slot base. Then chest here, Ignite, strength, bleed while wielding an axe, HP on the champion Regalia base. Bulwark of the Last Abyss, just with like block chance, tier 7. Use Runes of Redemption to get a shield with T7 block chance if you need it. Cool. Ashes of Mortality, throwing attack speed. Eventually you want like something like LE dot. You can get that Vizrez elsewhere on your character. You'd rather want T7 LE dot here. It's a lot of damage. Either that or HP, of course. Belt here, HP, LE dot, fire damage, or mana regen, either way. You definitely want it on the armor base as well, or movement speed base works too. Ring here, throwing attack speed, sealed T1 minus throwing mana cost, and then LE dot, HP eventually on a better ring base than what I have. Then eventually throwing attack speed, damage over time, HP, Malin's Hubris, in those order. You want throwing attack speed, and then everything else is like whatever you can get on it, right? Boots here, like I said, movement speed, HP, then Twisted Heart, HP, LE dot. And that's pretty much it. And that's pretty much it for the character. That's pretty much it for the build. With all that being said, this has been Dread, off to go do something else. Bye.